Greetings, comrades. My heart bleeds when I see how Zimbabweans are treated in foreign lands. My heart bleeds when young children cannot go to school because they do not have study permits. My heart bleeds. When we were growing up in the village, our parents were only concerned about raising money for school fees, money to buy uniform. But this generation of parents is not only concerned about raising school fees or to buy uniform, but because this generation of parents is not documented, it cannot apply for the study permits of their kids in South Africa. My heart bleeds. My heart bleeds when I see videos of desperate Zimbabweans using illegal means to enter South Africa, not because they want to go through Limpopo Reef, but because the conditions that have been created forces them to cross the reef for greener pastures. My heart bleeds. My heart bleeds when there are reports that people have drowned inside Limpopo. Do you know that there are people that left Zimbabwe? They said to their families they are going to South Africa. They never arrived in South Africa. They never went back to their homes. And you can imagine the pain that their families are going through. My heart bleeds. My heart bleeds when Zimbabweans inside Zimbabwe organize themselves as a political formation or under the banner of a political party. Then state agents are set on them. They are visited in the middle of the night, adapted for political reasons. My heart bleeds. Some of us who grew up in rural Matabeleland during the war, I was born in 1970. I was a kid. I was 9 years old when I used to go to the mountains with my late grandmother to give food to the guerrillas. So with the experience of what war does. I was a little boy during the liberation struggle in Zimbabwe. I was a teenager during the Kukura wound. I was in the village. I was beaten up by soldiers, Zimbabwe National Army soldiers. I was beaten up in the village between 1983 to 1987. So my heart bleeds when people who went through this experience of the genocide are then accused of not doing enough in resolving the crisis in Zimbabwe. My heart bleeds. My heart bleeds when the political leadership in South Africa turns a blind eye to the brutality meted against the Zimbabweans by the Zimbabwean government. My heart bleeds. Zimbabweans, the majority of them, would prefer to be in Zimbabwe than South Africa, the majority of them. But the conditions that have been created in Zimbabwe by the ZANU-PF government has meant that people leave Zimbabwe looking for greener pastures. And my heart bleeds when I see Zimbabweans being bundled in police vans for deportation. My heart bleeds when you get a call to say I've been arrested. My heart bleeds when you hear that someone has paid the police officers 5,000 rands to buy their freedom, not to be deported. My heart bleeds. My heart bleeds when the victims, who are Zimbabweans, ordinary people, are the ones that pay the price for the mismanagement of Zimbabwean economy. My heart bleeds. I wish I had power to do something. As I have said, we are producing a generation of uneducated young people. They can't go to school because they have no study permits. Their parents do not have permits. They are accused, or were accused of running away from our country, failing to resolve the crisis. My heart bleeds when on daily basis you receive complaints about Zimbabweans, and you see people suffering. To be honest, the majority of Zimbabweans would prefer to be in Zimbabwe. But there are victims. There is no Zimbabwean, let me say the majority of Zimbabweans, will not want to cross Limpopo River to South Africa. If there was a caring government in Zimbabwe, there's no Zimbabwean who want to do such. There's no Zimbabwean who want to violate the immigration laws in South Africa. If the situation in Zimbabwe was different, there is no Zimbabwean who want to live this life of constantly running away from the police, running away from being arrested and be deported. There are quite a number of Zimbabweans that have gone to Zimbabwe trying to say, look, let's try to make things work. And they've come back. Why? Because we have no caring government. What we get as a result is that these poor Zimbabweans who are weak find themselves competing for legal resources in South Africa against the poor people in South Africa. We always say a communist must always stand in solidarity with the poor and the weak. It cannot be that a communist, anyone calling themselves a communist, would see Zimbabweans in South Africa as a problem. You cannot be a communist and have these ideas that no, mabahambi. Cannot be. Because these are weak people, and the solidarity must be given to the poor who are victims of the powerful. So you cannot be a communist. You cannot be a trade unionist. That see the victims of a Zimbabwean crisis flock into South Africa and see them as a problem. Some of us who lived in the villages during Kukurawundi, some of us who lived during the War of Liberation in the village, we know the brutality of ZANU-PF. We've gone through that brutality. We know it. This is why I'm saying my heart bleeds. I read all comments on social media. about how Zimbabweans are trying to survive. My heart bleeds. And I don't think there's any revolutionary anywhere who can celebrate the suffering of Zimbabweans. Zimbabweans that are in South Africa. And they see them as the victims. Not see them as the victims, but see them as the perpetrators of unemployment in South Africa, perpetrators of crime in South Africa, perpetrators of all the ills that are found in South Africa. I cannot be the revolutionary, because these very people are actually victims of a system in Zimbabwe. My heart bleeds. Please write in the comment section. Like this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you're on TikTok, please do follow us. Goodbye.